Hello and welcome back to the High Altitude Investing live stream. Today is the 6th of June, and I'm super excited to be streaming about crypto today, talking a little bit about what I think is going to happen in the near future and what is coming for this market. So it's going to be a good day, a good live stream. And we'll just get started here after I share the links on Discord and on X. Let's pull up Discord here, share the link, and we'll get started. Cool. So yeah, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the stream. Crypto Kids, what is up? Alex Yeet, good to see you. Blurs, thank you for tuning in. Operation Shutdown says I'm not selling yet. Good move. Yeah, I definitely think it would be a little crazy to sell your crypto here. So, Boss says happy Friday. Yeah, happy Friday, man. Friday is one of my favorite days, actually. So, yeah, happy Friday. Professor K, hey, what's up? Thank you for tuning in. Stoic Pioneers, good to see you tuning in again to another live stream. So yeah, cool. Let's talk about the markets and kind of what I think is going to happen here for the crypto markets. A lot of people flipping bearish. A lot of people got really scared. But if you look at the markets, we had a very nice recovery over the past 24 hours. So that drawback that we had on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin pulled back from 106,000 down to 100,000, we recovered from that drawback very quickly, and we had a very nice bullish recovery here on Bitcoin. So a lot of people, they get emotional, they freak out, they see the markets go down, and they end up making a lot of bad trading and investing decisions based on their emotion, right? So let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin, and then I can already see a bunch of requests coming in for different altcoins, so we'll start to cover altcoins basically right away. But yeah, people, they get bearish easily. They freak out, and you just can't do that. If you want to be a good investor or a good trader, you have to learn how to rein in your emotions, keep a level head, and not worry about the price action, because there's going to be days where it goes down and you're thinking, holy cow, this market isn't going to recover. Or this is the beginning of something very big on the downside, and those are usually the best times to buy. Why do you think Warren Buffett says to be greedy when other people are fearful, and fearful when other people are greedy? It's pretty simple. Obviously, applying that takes a lot of practice and time, because the natural human side of ourselves, we give up on stuff pretty quickly, and we have a tendency to let our emotions take charge. So we'll make emotional decisions and then try to justify it later with faulty logic. But if you can learn how to overcome that side of yourself, then you can be a good, successful trader and investor. Now, in the last two live streams that I made, I talked a little bit about a correction coming in the markets. That's exactly what we saw here on Bitcoin and quite a few other coins as well. So the correction happened as planned, which is really good to see. And now what could be happening here is the beginning of a bullish move. So if we turn our moon phases on, kind of our little secret little indicator here. A lot of people don't know that a full moon is generally bullish. That's this gray thing right here. And a new moon is generally bearish. So in my previous live streams, one of the reasons I was bearish on crypto was because of the new moon phase. And I mentioned that we were going into a new moon on the 26th, and that we'd have a correction, very likely have a correction due to the new moon phase, and that's exactly what happened. And now we have a full moon coming in just a few days, like I believe 5 days away from now. When is the next full moon? The next full moon is on the 11th. So, yeah, 5 days away, we'll have a full moon cycle and generally bullish. Now, what can happen is the markets can start to recover before you get the full moon. So, a lot of times it's not like perfectly synced. Sometimes you'll see a new moon happen and it'll still go up a little bit. Like right here, you can see a new moon happened, then the markets went up and then it crashed, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of latency, but overall, most of the time, a new moon is bearish and a full moon is bullish for the crypto markets, like a good majority of the time. So we could be seeing a bullish reversal here pretty soon for Bitcoin. The other thing that you want to pay attention to with the Bitcoin markets is we have a bullish flag pattern right here on Bitcoin. So you can see we have a bullish trend right here, higher high, higher low pattern, and then we start moving down inside of a channel, which is a bullish flag pattern. Very, very strong continuation pattern. If we break bullish through the resistance of this pattern, then that would suggest continuation on Bitcoin, which would suggest continuation on the rest of the markets because everything follows Bitcoin. It's like the mothership of crypto. So that's kind of what I'm seeing with Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Bitcoin now. Past 2 live streams, I've been bearish. The markets crashed according to plan. And now I am bullish on the markets, and I'm expecting a bullish reversal and more upside coming, or very likely more upside coming in the near future for Bitcoin. Cool. So let's start talking about altcoins. Enough about Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and talk about the altcoin markets today. Silver started rising, by the way. Yeah, silver is going up according to plan. I've been watching silver for a long time now, ever since I learned about the market cycle and what happens when you see a market cycle. Back in like 2017, when I really started learning about these cycles and how they worked, I started looking at silver in the bigger time frames, and I've been bullish on silver for a very long time because of the market cycle. So it's cool to see the fruition of that cycle starting to play out and a bullish recovery on silver happening in the beginning of something that could be very, very, very big for silver. So the first request that we have today for altcoins is Flare. Let's pull up Flare and do a little analysis on Flare. So the first thing that I see here with Flare is very similar to what I see with Bitcoin, with a bullish flag pattern on this market. So you can see we have a downward facing channel here, which is a bullish flag pattern and generally appears before you get continuation. So this is a bullish continuation pattern. Just look up bull flag on Google. If you ever want to learn more about a pattern, just go to Google Images. You're going to get tons of examples of what these patterns can look like, real examples inside of markets, as well as just textbook examples and what can happen as a result of these bullish or bearish patterns that appear in the market. So a bull flag is a bullish continuation pattern. So the bullish trend that we've seen on Flare from down here at just a little over a penny all the way up to just over 2 pennies right here, this bullish flag is a continuation pattern. So if we break bullish out of this pattern, then we'd expect continuation of our immediate trend and more upside in the near future for this coin. And yeah, just a continuation of the upside that we've already seen right here on Flare. So that's my view on Flare. Can we cover ZBCN? Sure, let's do it. Oh, baby. Look at that bullish trend. I mean, what a breakout. you know? What a nice bullish breakout here on ZBCN that we saw after this huge accumulation structure right here that happened over the period of many, many months. Once we broke bullish out of that range, look how nice. What a nice bullish breakout, right? A little bit of a correction here in the short term, which is to be expected. If you get a big bullish breakout like this, you're probably going to have some type of profit taking. People are going to be taking profits, and a lot of people are going to be FOMO buying, so you're going to get some type of a correction most of the time when you get a move like what we saw here on ZBCN, right? Now, in terms of Elliott waves, we have a one wave right here, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and really what's set up for this coin is a fifth wave. And a lot of times what happens for crypto is we'll get an extended fifth wave, where the fifth wave will actually be bigger than wave 3, especially like on the daily candlesticks or on the weekly candlesticks. You'll see that happen a lot more often than like on the 4-hour or the 6-hour. With crypto, it's the same as commodity markets like gold or silver or oil. We get extended fifth waves a lot. So instead of just a little baby fifth wave like that, you'll get this big extended kind of fifth wave for ZBCN. And if that happens, we could reach 1.5 cents here in the fifth wave pretty easy, just over a penny pretty easily here, which is a nice gain from current price. That would not surprise me at all. And what you have to understand about Elliott waves, when I'm drawing a fifth wave here, that does not mean that this trend would just magically be over. You have to understand that that just means that a correction would be likely to happen after that fifth wave is completed. So an ABC correction can happen, and that can evolve into a bigger Elliott wave structure, where now that's wave 1 and wave 2 of a bigger trend that continues to expand and grow in value over a longer period of time. So you have to understand that about Elliott wave theory, just so that you don't think, oh, well, there's a fifth wave, that must be the top of this coin, I should sell all my coins and run and never come back to it. And then you come back a year later, and all of a sudden that thing has grown significantly because it's part of a bigger trend that was forming, and you just sold the top of a subwave, of a 5 wave of a subwave. So just understanding that is really important when it comes to Elliott waves. A lot of people did this with Bitcoin. People sold Bitcoin all the time. They either didn't sell until the bear market and they sold the bottom out of fear, or a lot of people sold Bitcoin at like 3K, at 1,000, at 10,000, at 20,000, at 60,000. And look, Bitcoin is worth over 100,000 per coin. They're trying to call the top on the trend, and they're trying to say, oh, well, this fifth wave, this immediate cycle is over, so I'm going to take all my profits, and then they miss out on the long-term growth that can happen over time if you just let the market ride. So that's pretty important to understand. That's why people say the trend is your friend. It really is your friend. You want to work with the direction of the market over the long term and let stuff moon. Don't be so quick to take all your profits. You can take some profits. That's why scaling out is so good. You could sell like 25%, when you're way up in profit. But going 100% out of the market, man, that is not a good thing to do. That's something I've done myself before, and there's been times where if I would have just held on to whatever coin that I took 100% out on and just kept my position over the long term, it would have grown into just insane amounts of money. But trying to be smart, trying to think I know where the top of the market is, you end up, missing out on a lot of profit. So don't do that. Can we look at KETA? Yeah, let's take a look at KETA. I actually don't know if I've done analysis on this coin before, so this will be cool. Go to the 16-hour time frame. It's really important to go through a lot of different time frames. If you guys want to make money in these markets, you have to understand the different context of the time frames. It's easy to get focused on smaller time frames, and it's really important to zoom out to like the daily or the 16-hour or the 20 or the 12-hour or the 4-hour, 1 week, 1 month. Try to get into bigger time frames. Don't get stuck on like the 45-minute or the 5-minute time frame. So here with KETA, we see a triangle breakout. So we have a bull pennant right here. We broke bullish out of that triangle. And let's see if we reached the minimum target. So you can measure from the bottom of the triangle to the top of the triangle, and you place it at the point of breakout, and that will give you the minimum target for that pattern. So here's a bullish pennant right here, bull triangle. We measured the height of the pattern. That's also called the amplitude. You'd call that the amplitude of the pattern. And you put that line at the point of breakout, which was right here, and that amplitude gives you the minimum target for that pattern. And you can see that we did reach that minimum target here for KETA perfectly. We went like right up to the minimum target and then pulled back here and came back down to support. So that's kind of cool to see, right? It's cool to see when those trading patterns play out and when they actually work according to plan. And what you expect now, a lot of times, now that we have an established uptrend here for this coin, what you'd be expecting here is continuation of that trend. So we broke bullish out of the triangle, and we came back down onto the support level of that triangle. We came back down onto major support, and now we're starting to come back up off of that support level. So what I'd be looking for KETA and what you guys want to watch for would be continuation of this uptrend, more upside. This could be the beginning of something very big for this coin. Understanding the trend is super powerful, like I was talking about earlier. People try to call tops. They try to get excited on taking profits, and definitely lock in profits. Don't get stuck in a market. You want to lock in some profits, but you also don't want to try to get too bearish too soon. It's really easy to do. So let's go ahead and pull up Solana over here. And if you look at Solana actually did a very similar kind of thing as what we see with KETA over here on the left, where early on in Solana's uptrend, we had a triangle pattern on Solana. We broke bullish out of that triangle, and then you can see that was the beginning of a very large uptrend for Solana that took Solana all the way to a new all-time high, and a lot more upside came for Solana after that triangle. So trying to, you definitely don't want to try to call the top on something. A lot of growth can come before the actual top happens in the market. And that's really how I see crypto as a whole right now. People are trying to call the top on crypto already. People are trying to be bearish on it. But if you go look at the altcoin markets, most of them haven't even broke their old all-time high. A lot of them are still in the disbelief phase of their cycles. A lot of them are still very, very, very undervalued. If you look at Bitcoin only went 30% above its old all-time high. So Bitcoin has barely went up above its old all-time high. So the idea that it's all over already is just ridiculous. People are just getting irrational. They're just afraid. They have bear market PTSD from the last bear market because of FTX and how crazy 2021 was, and everybody's afraid to buy crypto because they're worried that it's just gonna dump again, just crash like really quickly. But really, if you look at Bitcoin, well, we're 55%, not 30%, but we're 55% above our old all-time high. And generally speaking, like in the last cycle, we went up 270% above our old all-time high, and that one really got cut off early. If FTX and stuff wouldn't have happened, and we were in the middle of a global pandemic, and the price of Bitcoin was still increasing in value, like that cycle really wasn't much of a cycle in comparison to what Bitcoin has historically done. But it went over 270% above its old all-time high before the top actually was put in place, before we actually topped out in the market. And if you look at Bitcoin in 2017, which is a lot more like what I'm expecting for this cycle, because of the conditions of the market and the parabolic nature of what we're really going into in these markets, we went 1,500% above our old all-time high in the last cycle, or the 2017 cycle. So that's a huge increase from the bottom or the top of our old all-time high to the top of our next all-time high. And the reason that happened, because it was really because we had the perfect market conditions for that type of growth. And crypto right now is set up for a similar thing. We have a very similar kind of economic environment, landscape, that's the word I was looking for. We have a very similar economic landscape as what happened in 2017. So we could have a very, very big, very parabolic run on Bitcoin and the entire market as a whole. 50% above our old all-time high. This thing has juice left. Like, there's going to be a lot more, especially, all the fundamental reasons this cycle are way, way, way different than anything we've ever seen ever before. Bitcoin being a treasury reserve asset, all of that stuff is just different than anything we've ever seen before. Can you do Aave? This is Charts Chasers. I accidentally changed my YouTube name. Sure. Yeah, let's do Aave. So Aave is very, very, very similar to Bitcoin back in the day. If you know about Bitcoin in 2015, when Bitcoin had its market cycle, pulling back from the bull market it had back in like 2013 and 2014, had this kind of big bull market and a very big correction that came afterwards. And if you look at the market cycle here on Bitcoin over here on the right, and if you look at Aave over here on the left, you're going to see a very similar structure in both of these markets. So you have your ABC correction down, wave A, wave B, and wave C. Just like that, wave A, B, and C. Perfect ABC correction. And we're starting to recover here on Aave, just like what Bitcoin did over here in 2016 when Bitcoin started to recover. And this goes back to what I was just talking about, where a lot of altcoins are in disbelief phase or depression. Some of them are even in the depression phase of the market cycle. If you guys don't know what a market cycle is, go look up what a market cycle is and take a look at the human emotion that happens every single cycle. And a lot of altcoins are in disbelief right now. And that's exactly where Aave is. So the general consensus around most people, they're going to be in a state of disbelief that this is going to do something big. unless you're talking about crypto guys that are kind of on top of this stuff and they're smart and they're looking at this stuff and they know what's coming in the markets. Your average person, the sentiment around the altcoin markets, they're going to be in a state of disbelief that it's going to recover. So you have to understand the psychology of most people right now in the market is very, very, very in that state of disbelief, especially the altcoins. They're starting to get a little bit more excited about Bitcoin and believe that something big could happen. But even with Bitcoin, there's still a lot of people that are very, very skeptical. So in terms of the market cycle, we're in a state of disbelief, and what's coming after that is going to be huge. Very, very, very parabolic, very, very vertical, and very, very profitable. And people are going to start to have faith in the markets, and that's going to drive the price really, really high. And a lot of these coins are going to go very, 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 very high in value, and then we'll go into like the belief phase of the cycle. We'll go into the thrill phase. People will get very excited, and then everybody will think it will go up forever. And of course, it can't. And at some point, it will have to top out. But we are a long ways away from that happening. So we're really still positioned for a lot of profits. And if you think you missed out on the crypto markets, you haven't. Like, you have just as big of an opportunity right now as pretty much any other time in history throughout the crypto markets. Like, the opportunity is very, very high for you to make money. So Aave looks really good. Can you do T-Fuel? Sure. Let's pull up a T-Fuel somewhere where we have a little more data, somewhere where we can see the whole chart, like over here on Binance. So this goes back to the whole cycle thing, and I was just talking about how some of these altcoins are in depression, some of them are in disbelief. T-Fuel is one of those coins that is still in it's really in the disbelief phase of the cycle. So if you look at the market cycle, that disbelief phase is that early point in the cycle where people really don't have any confidence or faith. They're in a state of disbelief. The idea that this is going to recover sounds ridiculous. They're like, no way is that going to recover. Now, obviously, I'm talking to you guys. Most of the people that follow my channel, you guys are all really into crypto. You guys are all really educated. You've been learning a lot. You've been doing your research and studying these coins. So you guys are going to have a little bit of a different view than your average person. But we're in a state of disbelief. And even people that are in the crypto community, a lot of people are still going to be experiencing these emotions because they don't have knowledge of what the market cycle is, and they don't have any awareness, and so they are just going based on their emotions. So like on X, if you go to your X and you see a whole bunch of people that are bearish on your favorite coin right now, or you see people that are like really a lot more negative, they're probably just experiencing the natural human emotion of the cycle. And you're going to see that even within the crypto community, even within people, within the group of people that have done their research on crypto. So just be aware of that. We're always going to have people that are in a state of disbelief. But what happens is the market starts to recover and people get excited about it, but it's still not really in the general awareness of most people until you go parabolic. So like most people didn't really hear about Bitcoin. Like every cycle, obviously people heard about Bitcoin, but people weren't really talking about Bitcoin in 2017 until around 10,000 per coin and 20,000. Like that's when everybody started talking about Bitcoin. Every YouTube channel, every news channel, like if you were in a public setting somewhere, the topic of Bitcoin would come up, right? So people don't really talk about these things very much until it's exciting. until the price is going up. And with T-Fuel, we're really at that point where not a lot of people are going to be talking about it unless they're really smart investors and they're kind of ahead of the curve. But once you break above our old all-time high and we go parabolic and more of a sustained uptrend like what happened to Bitcoin over here, then you're going to see people talking about a lot more of these altcoins, and it's going to be a more common conversation than what we see right now. So yeah, I'm very bullish on T-Fuel. We are in the disbelief phase of the cycle and expect a big recovery on this coin. And people will talk about it again. It will become something that people are excited about. And you will see people talking about a lot of different coins and a lot of different projects that were just completely forgotten about. Can you do Ethereum, please? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. So Ethereum is another one I'm bullish on. Let's keep my drawing here so we can talk a little bit about what I've been watching here for Ethereum. So the first thing that you can see on the 15-day candlestick with Ethereum is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. Then we get our ABC correction down here. And now what we've started to do here, and we'll drop time frame to like the 5-day time frame here with Ethereum. Now we've started to do a V-bottom. So if you don't know what a V-bottom is, it's a V-shaped bottom. Like, it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory, right? And the market does this quite often. Like, I've seen a lot of V-bottoms in crypto historically, like especially the COVID drop back over here. If you look at the COVID drop in 2020, that was a V-shaped recovery, a V-bottom, right? You have a V like that, and then once you break above the resistance of that V-shape, that starts a big bullish trend. So the V-bottom is fairly common for crypto. And if we pull up Ethereum over here on the 5-day time frame, you can see the V-bottom starting to form here on Ethereum. If we can break above this neckline right here, that'd be really good. That suggests more upside. And especially once we get above this major resistance up here, that's going to be very, 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 very bullish for Ethereum to have a break above that major resistance level at 4,100 per coin. We came up to that level multiple times and rejected and came all the way back down to support. So there's a lot of resistance up there, which is to be expected considering the fact that our old all-time high for Ethereum was over here, right? So there's just a lot of resistance in this area for Ethereum for us to get up through. Do I think we will? Let's talk about that. So one of the things that Ethereum is doing right now is actually, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Amazon Ethereum fractal comparison, but it's actually a pretty cool thing to look at. If you don't know about this, it's pretty interesting to check this out. So we're going to pull this up here and talk a little bit about the Amazon Ethereum comparison here. So we have Amazon over here on the right, and we have Ethereum over here on the left. Let's increase time frame just a little bit so the candlesticks are a little easier, a little clearer to see, and then we'll talk about this. There we go. That looks good. And we'll go to the 10-day here on Ethereum as well. Cool. So Amazon is over here on the right, and Ethereum is over here on the left. And what you can see here, this is the internet bubble that happened on Amazon back in the 90s, the late 90s right here. And then we had a correction on Amazon, right? The internet bubble pop. So that's kind of the bubble phase for Amazon.com. And then over here on Ethereum, we have our 2021 parabolic run, which was kind of like a bubble for Ethereum. Very, very parabolic, but then we had a huge correction in the Ethereum market. Now, what you can see here is just how similar these two markets look. I mean, this whole correction that happened right here in 2008, where Amazon just completely fell off a cliff and everybody freaked out, housing market crash, the world is ending, we're never going to see a recovery in the markets, this is the end of the world. That whole thing that happened in 2008, look what happened to Amazon after that correction, right? Imagine the people that bought the dip in 2008 and 2009. Those guys, they're doing all right, And if you look at Ethereum over here on the left and this whole tariff FUD right now, the world is over, we're never going to recover. There's just so much bad news out there, reasons to be bearish, Imagine the people that are buying the Ethereum dip right now. Think of what could happen to their portfolios over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Think of what could happen. It could be very, very, very big, like very profitable and very big. So that's my thesis on Ethereum. It looks a lot like what happened to Amazon during the internet bubble and what happened after the internet bubble recovered, but also as well as what happened to Amazon in 2008 and what happened after it recovered. And there's a lot of parallels between these two charts. And even economically, what's going on. Very similar kind of things happening. So that's my view on Ethereum. One last thing I want to bring up here about Ethereum. You can see here the resistance up here, our all-time high resistance. Isn't it interesting that the 2008 financial crisis that everybody, freaked out about and sold all their real estate and sold all their stocks and just totally panic sold? Isn't it interesting that that happened at an all-time high resistance level? This just goes to show how the technical analysis is lining up with these world events. Everybody's freaking out. Yeah, 2008 housing market, CFDs, credit default swap, right? Or CDF, right? People were freaking out. And they were really scared in 2008. But it's interesting that the correction happened at an all-time high resistance level. We hit an all-time high resistance, and then we had the 2008 financial crisis. And it's really interesting to me that Ethereum had a huge correction when it got up to its old all-time high resistance. And there's a world event that goes along with it, but it just goes to show how the technical analysis is also playing out here in these charts. So just kind of cool to be aware of that and to be watching that. Would you be able to do AMD? Yeah, we can totally look at AMD. I actually enjoy, it's fun to do charts like this for you guys because, you guys, a lot of times you ask me for crypto charts. So it's cool when you're into other stuff too, like stocks. It's really cool to do analysis on more than just crypto for you. So yeah, AMD, by the way, looks really good. This is a running flat correction here. So the Elliott wave is a running flat. Just Google running flat on Google. You just type it in on Google and look it up, and you're going to find a running flat pattern. And the running flat is a very, very, very profitable continuation pattern. So kind of what defines a running flat is the A wave goes up or the B wave goes up above the top of the A wave, and then the C wave doesn't go below the A wave. So it just looks like this: wave A, wave B, and wave C. So that's a running flat Elliott wave structure. Very similar actually to what happened to the S&P 500 back in the 2000s. But not quite the same. So the S&P 500 did an expanded flat correction, but it's still a similar kind of thing here. You can see the S&P 500 was in a bull market here, And then the S&P 500 did an expanded flat correction right here on the right. And you can see that the AMD did running flat correction. So they're a little bit different. The main difference being wave C actually goes below the bottom of wave A on an expanded flat correction. You can see wave C actually breaks below, where on a running flat correction, the wave C is actually up above the top of wave A. But it's a similar kind of market structure. It's a continuation pattern of an uptrend and something that you'd expect more upside coming based on that pattern. So here with AMD, what I'd be looking for is a very big parabolic run for this stock. We really only just got started. Look how long the accumulation was for this stock. This stock has been accumulating since the 70s, since 1973. Look at all of this accumulation. And then we just barely broke out into an uptrend here. So you can imagine the fruition of that accumulation and just how high this thing could go. This thing could go really high. This could see another 200-300% in value return on investment before it tops out and goes for a bear market. You know, this thing could run all the way till 2030 before it goes for a bear market. So it looks really good to me. Monero. You know, Monero is one of my personal favorite coins. You guys definitely want to be aware of Monero and the potential profit coming for this coin because it's very, very large. It's just insane, the type of profit that could be coming for Monero. Let's pull up the chart here and take a look here. Now, this is probably the biggest cup and handle pattern I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, this is massive. Look at this huge cup and handle pattern on Monero. Now, that's really set up for something that's going to blow people away. If you think about when Monero breaks above its old all-time high and this cup and handle starts coming to fruition, imagine just how high the price of Monero is going to go. This thing is going to go crazy. That cup and handle pattern is going to knock people's socks off. It's going to make people rich. It's worth $323 right now. This thing hitting $1,000 would be easy. Like, that would be a walk in the park for Monero to hit $1,000 per coin based on this cup and handle. No problem. So that wouldn't surprise me one bit to see that. $1,000 plus, like, really easily for this coin. Good day to you all. Yeah, good day to you too, Todd. Thank you for tuning in to today's live stream. Todd Brown, Chainlink. Yeah, let's pull up Chainlink. Do a little link analysis. Let me grab some water here. So Chainlink is very similar to what I've been talking about with these market cycles and paying attention to the human emotion of the cycle and what most people are thinking during certain periods of the cycle. When you look at Chainlink here, what you can see is a full market cycle of human emotion. You have the early phase of the cycle over here. You get your parabolic run up all the way to euphoria. You have your depression down here. It's just a classic market cycle. And the phase that Chainlink is in right now is the disbelief phase of the cycle. So that's that early phase of the cycle where you're starting to recover into a new market cycle. You're starting to to see the beginnings of something very bullish for this coin, but you haven't really taken off in any big way like you did in 2021, where we were going parabolic and going nuts because the cycle was coming to an end, and so we were going vertical. Here with Chainlink, we're still early on in the new cycle that started. We're still very early on here in the disbelief phase of the cycle. And if you want to study cycles, go look at cycles in different markets, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's the NASDAQ, whether it's whatever it is, it really doesn't matter. It could be silver. Go study market cycles and the human emotion and take a look at what the charts look like when that human emotion takes place in the market, and you're going to gain invaluable amounts of information that's going to make you a profitable trader and investor. And you can see here with Chainlink over here on the left and Bitcoin over here on the right, Bitcoin was in its disbelief phase of its cycle over here when it was recovering, but it really hadn't gone parabolic yet. It hadn't gone vertical. You'd started to see the early signs of a recovery, but it was still in the disbelief phase of the cycle. It hadn't even broke above its old all-time high. And once we got above that old all-time high, then people got excited. Then the price of Bitcoin went vertical, and we had a proper euphoric bull run for Bitcoin. And Chainlink is in that same phase of its cycle. Chainlink is in the disbelief phase of the cycle in preparation for a break above its old all-time high, a run all the way to a new all-time high, and a proper euphoric kind of bull run that comes when you progress toward, throughout the cycle and start to get closer to the top, where you get that euphoria phase. So we're still really early on. We have not got anywhere near that phase of euphoria where people are going crazy and leveraging their house and doing stupid stuff. We're not even anywhere near that with Chainlink. We're still super early on. So here at $13, you're able to pick up Chainlink at a very, very undervalued price. $13 is super, super undervalued. So you definitely want to be taking advantage of as many of these altcoins as possible, because a lot of them are at that phase where they're very, very, very undervalued. And what's going to happen in the future is going to be ridiculous. So you want to take advantage of it early on so you make the most money and be accumulating in times like this, so that when it goes parabolic, you're not buying the top. You're already rich. You're not trying to leverage your home because you feel like you missed out. So Chainlink is definitely a good looking coin to be accumulating. Matt Osty, smash those likes. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. Thoughts on RBN? Let's pull up RBN. Ribbon Finance. RBN. Oh, baby. You better sell all of it. It's going to go to zero. No, I'm just kidding. This looks pretty common. This is something you see all the time in crypto, especially since this coin got released during a bear market. So you can see it got added to Coinbase in 2022, which was the beginning of a huge bear market for the altcoins. So any coin that you find that got released, that got publicly traded on public exchanges in 2022, is probably going to see a huge crash like this, because there was just a massive bear market in the altcoins going on at that time. So that's pretty typical for a lot of these coins to see that. And what you can see here with Ribbon Finance is we're starting to see a little bit of price action down here. So people are a little bit interested down here at 13 cents, pretty undervalued. They're starting to pick it up. and we started to see a little bit of a run back here toward the end of the year in 2024. Let's see, towards the end of the year in 2023. 2024 wasn't so hot for this coin. You can see we had more of a correction during that period of time, but now we're at major all-time support, and there's still good volume down here. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some type of a reaction off of this major area of support down here that you can see here on Ribbon Finance. So you definitely want to be paying attention to major support levels, and you definitely want to be paying attention to stuff that has had these big corrections like this, because a lot of times you can buy something very, very, very undervalued when there's a lot of whales picking it up dirt cheap before a big parabolic run happens and it has its first cycle. Because as crazy as it sounds, a lot of times what you'll see is a big correction in the market like this, a bit of a recovery, kind of a double bottom, and then the market will actually go into a proper bull market and see like an actual cycle and go vertical and go parabolic before, then you'll top out and see a correction afterwards. But this is a pretty common kind of thing that will happen inside of markets. So if you can find something down here like this, it's really profitable to buy that double bottom pattern before the parabolic run occurs in the market and you go vertical. So Ribbon Finance would definitely fall under that category of coins that has consistent accumulation. So there's clearly somebody buying it. People clearly care about this coin. There's enough volume here that it's not just like a couple retail investors. There's clearly serious volume on this coin, and it's very, very, very undervalued. Not to mention the fact that we have bullish divergence forming on this coin as well. So we have a bit of a lower low in price right here, but we have a higher low forming on the MACD, which is bullish divergence. So that's really a common bottoming pattern to see in these markets before a bigger picture bullish reversal takes place. So that's my view on Ribbon Finance. It looks pretty good, honestly. Litecoin. Did you hear about Caffeine AI on ICP? Pretty amazing stuff. Where do you think ICP is topping this cycle? Well, ICP, let's pull up the chart. ICP is one of these coins that has not had a proper bull market. It too got released during a bear market. Like, it got publicly traded. It got put on exchanges right at the beginning of a massive bear market. So it's never had a proper cycle. So this falls under the category of coins that you can buy early on where it's very undervalued. There's good volume. The price is dirt cheap, and you're going to be able to pick it up at down here like $4, where you may never see this price ever again, or for a long time. It may never be worth $4 ever again, until something 30, 40 years or whatever down the road replaces it, like a blockbuster kind of situation, right? Because stuff gets replaced over the long term. But in terms of like being worth $5 right now and the type of growth that can come afterwards, we might not ever see price down this low ever again. So it's important to keep that in mind with a lot of these coins. And for ICP, how high do I think it can go this cycle? Well, I definitely, the highest it's ever been is $2,000 like per coin, it was like $2,800 per coin. But that was very, very short-lived. It just got added to exchanges at this stupidly high price and fell off a cliff. So for a more reasonable target for ICP this cycle, I'd be looking at like $200 per coin per ICP. somewhere up here is a little bit more reasonable of a target for this coin. So that's a pretty big increase still in value, but it's not, it's not like a new all-time high. For ICP to break out to a new all-time high would be kind of crazy because it was worth over $2,000. Is it possible? I've seen some pretty crazy stuff happen in these markets. Is it possible? Yeah. It's possible for it to just become like the new biggest thing ever, and for it to be like the next Apple computers or something and just go crazy all the way to a new all-time high, break out up above $2,800. Am I betting my money on it? No. I wouldn't expect that to happen for ICP. Do I think it'll have a proper run? Yeah, I think it could go to $200 per coin pretty easily. So, and have its first kind of proper bull market. ICP, I think, will have a Filecoin type move back in 2020. It could. I've seen that happen before, where it gets added to exchanges, it falls off a cliff, it looks deader than dead, and then all of a sudden, boom, it just goes straight vertical all the way to a new all-time high and blows people away and makes them question their reality. So it's possible for something like that to happen. Dallin, which coins can break their all-time highs? A lot of them will. A lot of them will, like a lot of the major names, like you're talking AVAX, Chainlink, like a lot of those coins that people have given up on, Chili's too, a lot of coins will break their old all-time high. But depending on how, really depends on how adopted it gets. If that coin gets heavily adopted and there's a lot of demand for it, that's going to depend on how high it breaks above the old all-time high. So you're going to see a lot of coins break above their old all-time high, but some of them won't really go for much of a run. They'll just kind of be slow and not run very good. Chainlink, I think, will go for a good run, but I'm just drawing on the chart here to kind of show you guys an example of what will happen to some of them. Some of them will just kind of go really slow, and there won't be a lot of demand for it. They'll really only be increasing just because crypto is exciting and people are excited about crypto, so there's a little bit of demand there. And then other coins, there's going to be a lot of demand for that project and a lot of growth, and it's going to just go like that, like vertical, and just go nuts and keep breaking above its old all-time high and keep soaring all the way to prices that are just insane. And that's where it's important to look at something like Apple computers and take a look at what happened to Apple computers, because Apple is something that there was demand for. Same with Amazon.com, right? There was demand for that stock. And so not only did it break above its old all-time high that it formed over here during the internet bubble, which you can see here's the internet bubble on Apple computers, not only did it break above its old all-time high, but look at what happened to the price of Apple computers after it broke above its old all-time high. It went nuts. It went vertical. It was leading the market and just completely blowing people away and continually breaking out to new all-time highs over and over and over again because there was demand for this stock. So there's going to be certain coins that there's demand for that go vertical, and there's going to be certain coins that there isn't as much demand and they're just kind of increasing because crypto is exciting. And the same thing happens in the stock market, by the way. If you go look at Costco, for example, or not Costco, if you go look at, trying to remember, Cisco, that's the name, Cisco. If you go look at Cisco had a big run during the internet bubble, right? Cisco was the coolest thing ever during the internet bubble. Everybody was buying it. They were all excited. Here's the internet bubble right here, okay? Cisco had this big parabolic run during the internet bubble. But look what happened afterwards. Look how just lame and slow and unmotivated this bull run is, because the demand for this stock didn't go parabolic like it did with Apple computers, or like it did with Amazon.com, or like it did with Nvidia, or like it did with other stocks. So you can see that both Cisco and Apple computers were both affected by the internet bubble, and both of them had a parabolic run during the internet bubble. But what happened after that is really a lot different. You know, look how much demand there was for Apple and how little demand there was for Cisco after the internet. Like none. We've only seen, after the internet bubble pop, we've only seen Cisco go up 597%, or about 600% from its bottom to where it's at right now. But if you look at Apple computers and you measure the percentage gain that it's had since its bottom and where it's at right now, look at this growth. 89,000% from the bottom to where it's at right now in terms of percentage gain. So this is kind of where it's important to follow volume, follow where the money is. Apple computers had an insane amount of volume down here early on in its cycle. There was a clear indication that Apple was going to be something that people cared about. There was clear demand for Apple computers. And sometimes you won't see the volume. Sometimes something will just start getting demand out of nowhere, and you don't see the demand for it as clearly as you did with Apple computers on the chart here. But the volume was the most clear indication that Apple computers was going to be something big, was going to be something that people really used on an everyday basis. And if you look at Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin has been doing the exact same thing as Apple. It really has. If you look at Bitcoin in terms of volume right now and what's been going on with Bitcoin in terms of volume, look at this. Look at the demand for Bitcoin over the past 10 years. And then look at the demand for Apple here early on in its uptrend before it went parabolic. And look what happened to Apple computers. Look at the growth that came for Apple. And then look at Bitcoin over here. And what could happen to Bitcoin is very similar. The demand is there. But also you see Ethereum looks like Amazon. So not only does Bitcoin look like Apple computers, but Ethereum looks like Amazon. So you can go around and look at these different coins and you can find where the demand is. Or one of the easiest things to do is just type in 30-day volume, CoinMarketCap, and then pull up CoinMarketCap.com and pay attention to what has high volume. Binance Coin has $58 billion in trading volume over the past 30 days. Bitcoin has over $1 trillion in trading volume over the past 30 days. Ethereum has $521 billion in trading volume, right? Pay attention to where the money is going. Those are going to be the coins that are going to do those kind of parabolic runs like what we see with Microsoft or Apple or Nvidia or whatever you're looking at. So that's kind of how you want to look at the question of what coins are going to break above their old all-time high. Follow the money. You know, all of these coins in the top 100 in trading volume, they have a way, way higher probability of seeing that type of a parabolic run than coins that don't have that kind of trading volume. So volume speaks volumes, if you want to word it like that. You know, that's why I make videos about Cardano. That's why I make videos about Dogecoin. That's why I make videos about Ethereum. That's why I'm making videos about XRP. That's why I'm making videos about Litecoin and AVAX and, you know, Bitcoin Cash and stuff that people Sometimes people go, oh yeah, but that isn't that kind of like a dumb like 2017 coin that like people invested in back in 2017. Like, why would you put money into that? Isn't that kind of dumb to do that? No. Institutions are putting billions of dollars into these things. They know what's up. You should probably follow the money. You should probably do what the big players are doing. They know what they're doing. Follow the volume, follow the money. A lot of these coins that came out in 2017 or had their first big bull market in 2017 have been in multi-year accumulations for a long time, and their volume has been consistent over a long time, and that's really what's setting them up for that kind of a parabolic run, of a vertical move in the market. So I hope that answers your question. Louis D says, what's up, fam? What's up, man? Good to see you tuning in. It's hard to believe that Theta and T-Fuel are so cheap. Yeah, again, that goes back to what I was talking about with human emotion and people just getting so emotionally driven. They get so excited, they get so fearful. The price of these things can drop 99%, 95%, and then recover and come back up 10,000% from their bottoms. That's how volatile crypto is. It's one of the most emotionally driven markets in the entire world. And if you want to be a good trader and investor in these markets, you have to learn how to identify that emotion and be willing to buy the dip. So yeah, it is pretty crazy how cheap Theta and T-Fuel are at these prices. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it really is a good opportunity to be picking it up dirt cheap before that kind of emotional recovery that can happen in the market. Okay, cool. Let's do maybe one or two more coins here, and then we'll call it a day. Good Speed says, I'm accumulating. Yeah, that's very smart to be doing down at these levels. You definitely have the right mindset to be buying during a time where it's undervalued like this after those big corrections. That's exactly the mindset you want to have. That's the kind of mindset that you need to be able to make money in the crypto markets. So that's a very, very wise choice to be accumulating down here. Okay, let's do X or AXS. AXS. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with the market cycle and people getting very fearful of big corrections and big drops in value. You can see the price of AXS is very low here. Now, what we haven't seen yet, like what we saw with Solana started to recover. So Solana did this exact same thing. So if you look at Solana versus the dollar here, and let's actually pull up a chart where we have the full historical data. So Solana did this exact same pattern, by the way. If you don't know, Solana did the exact same thing that AXS has done over here. Now, unfortunately, we haven't seen the recovery that Solana has seen on AXS. So there hasn't been, it's not leading the market like we see with AXS, where it's leading the market. But what can happen is you can have a lagger. Then all of a sudden, when people get excited about the markets, it has a big recovery and a parabolic run, even though it hasn't had one yet. So this one is lagging behind. It's not like Solana, where there was clear demand for Solana, and it took it all the way to a new all-time high. But it did the same pattern of human emotion as Solana did. So this one's very undervalued down here. It's really at that phase where it could go from a lagger to one that's starting to get money coming into it and starting to have a parabolic run like what we see over here with Solana. Unfortunately, it hasn't had that run yet, as you can see, but it's really at that point where we're very, very, very undervalued down here. And if it's going to have a run, it's going to happen soon. And it should be very parabolic, kind of like what happened to Solana over here as well. But we haven't seen the demand come in yet. But we do have volume. We do have a little bit of volume down here. So I'm not saying it can't have a run, because it definitely can. All right, let's do Theta, and then I'm going to call it a day. So thank you guys for tuning in to today's live stream, by the way. I really appreciate every single one of you, and it's been a good stream today. We talked about a lot of really good stuff, so. Alrighty. Let's remove all our, not our indicators. We don't want to remove that. So Theta is at that area where we're going to see the same kind of a recovery that we saw with Ethereum back in 2020. So if you weren't here in 2020 when Ethereum recovered after doing the same market structures we see here with Theta, then you definitely should go look at the chart, because it's exactly the same. In fact, I'll just show you so you don't even have to do anything. You can just sit here and chill. But if you look at the Ethereum chart and what happened to Ethereum in 2020, same thing, same exact structure in the market, same parabolic run, same ABC correction down. And I've talked about this probably like 30 times, maybe even more now on this channel, but it's just as true today as it was yesterday. And to understand this about Theta is how you're going to be able to make the right choice with your money, so you're able to profit the most as possible, profit as much as possible off the parabolic run that's coming for this coin. Because, you know, a lot of people, unfortunately, they sold their Ethereum down here when Ethereum crashed in 2020. You can see this huge red candle right here in volume. In terms of volume, a lot of retail investors sold, and all of the bigger whales and the bigger players bought in to the market. And you can see that the same thing is happening here with Theta, where we have a correction right here on Theta back down to major support. A lot of people are going to be selling. A lot of people are going to be afraid. A lot of people are going to be bearish. But the parabolic run that's going to come after is going to blow people away and make a lot of people very rich. Just like what happened to Ethereum in 2021, where a lot of people were very, very rich because of the run that happened. So you can get rich buying Theta down here. It's just exactly like buying Ethereum before Ethereum went for a big, big parabolic run in 2021. And the thing with Theta is this one could be more sustained than what happened to Ethereum in 2021, where Ethereum had a parabolic run, but then Ethereum had a big correction in 2022. But because of the context of the crypto markets, and we're moving kind of out of a bubble into something more like what happened with the internet, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, where Apple and all of those bigger companies went into a more sustained growth instead of just a bubble, and they went for a real parabolic run. Theta, this cycle, could do something even bigger than what happened to Ethereum. Might take a little bit longer to get to the old all-time high right here than what happened with Ethereum, but the parabolic run that comes afterwards could be bigger and more sustained than even what happened with Ethereum, because we are really just in a big bubble with crypto here in 2021, to be frank. So, and we're headed more into a bigger, more mass adoption type of cycle. That at some point everything has to come down at some point, but the growth that we could see in crypto as a result of the mass adoption cycle could be way bigger than anything we've ever seen before. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to today's video, or live stream, I mean. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you guys in future live streams. And yeah, have an awesome weekend and stay profitable out there.